All right. You guys can hop on over on this side too, okay? All right, all right. Yeah, it won't hurt to sit on the ground. All right, dudes. So, we are making the tiki torch, Florida style, right? Got a little piece of gallberry right here. We wanted to pick one that was on its way out, but also still green. Because the reason why I want it to be green is because I want it to stretch. And you're going to see what I mean by stretching when I start kind of prying the wood open a little bit. And if it was completely dead, it wouldn't want to do that. It's got to still be green as far as alive to be able to do that for me. So, I want a little bit more of a flatter edge. See how that's pretty slanted right there? So I'm going to clean that edge up just a little bit. See, I'm just taking nice little baby strokes. I wouldn't probably be doing it that way if I was right by myself, but I also don't want to fling a big old piece into one of your guys' eyes. So again, the situation always changes. You're probably not going to be in a situation where you got 15, 20 people around you watching. So you don't have to do it that way. But notice where I'm swinging, the only thing I'm going to cut is farts if I miss, because I'm just cutting air, right? I said that the other day, and I've been so tickled with myself ever since. It's very cool. See, now I'm moving that up so I don't ever get my hatchet directly into the soil, because especially sand, it's not very good for it, right? So that way it's a little bit flatter, and I take a look at it, see what angles I need to clean up. Okay, I need to get that side a little bit better. It's bouncing a little bit, so I'm going to hold it with my knee. It's pretty good right there that I can just clean up with my knife. So I'll take that. This case, oh, what's up, guys? Yeah, I'm glad you got to my birthday party. Okay. Just kidding, man. He's like, wait, what? So in this case, I want a nice strong grip. So I'm going to put my thumb over this, right? That way I've got a good firm grip. I can even hold it like this, but I just want to make sure that knife's always going away from me, right? So that way I can get in there, clean up some of the rest of these little pieces. And it doesn't have to be perfect, guys, because you're going to see what I'm going to do to it. And then you're going to realize, okay, doesn't need to be that clean. That's good enough for what I'm wanting to work with. Now, I'm going to look around my area, and I'm going to find some twigs. Using the little piece of scrub oak right here. It'll work just fine. Live sticks are always best because then they're not going to sit there and shatter when you're starting to dry this in there. I just need some sticks about that long. So I'm going to break that one right here. It'll be one stick. Peel this off. About right there will be another stick. That's a little bit too thin for me. That's a little bit too thin for me, so I got two good sticks off of that one. I want a couple more though. I'm going to learn from my judgment on that last one that I want a little bit thicker. Flick off that small stuff. Got about that much that I need. Get that one. That one's a little bit curved, but that's okay. I'll just make this one smaller, and I'll use it as one of my first little sticks that I'm going to use. So these are sticks that I'm going to use for simply just prying. So, got my sticks right there. Got my knife and my hatchet. Well, this is about the safest way to do this. is I'm going to sit there. I'm going to find kind of a natural little groove right there in the wood. Just something that I've already cut. That way, I don't want this to be on the outside, right? You know, I'm just trying to get it in the middle. And you see I've kind of got a little splinter right there that's already naturally occurring from when I hit it with my hatchet. So I'm going to stick that bad boy right in that groove, just like this. Now, I don't want my hands down here, right? Because if that slips, I've got it nice firm in there, so you can see I know that's not going to slip. I'm not going to hold it in the way that it's going to. I'm just balancing it so I can get my hatchet up here. That way my fingers are nice and out of the way. You hammer this down. You don't want to go too much. That's starting to look pretty good as far as how far I want it. And then, if you make sure to not lose all your twigs. Help me out, kids. Yeah, there you go. See, you can bushcraft and be ADHD. So, notice I put my twig in before I take out my knife, right? And the reason why is depending on what kind of wood, that might suck in before I can get my twig in there. And then when I take my hands to try to pry it open, because I'm a big, strong man, I break my darn tool. So it's not about strength, it's actually about gentleness. It's about being delicate. That's why women are usually better survivalists than men are, because we get mad and want to build it fast. So I've got it in there, and I'm going to start sliding my knife out nice and gentle, put it down super safe. Now I can work this in just a little bit more. Cool. I could start to feel the flesh of that skin of that stick breaking. I know if I drive it in any further, it's probably just going to break the stick, but it's okay, because even if you break the stick, it'll still be stuck inside there. You'll just break both the sides off of it. I don't care if there's some little dangles going on, because I'm just out here in the woods trying to survive, right? So I go and I find another little notch. That one, I made that notch because there wasn't another one. So don't think that there's always going to be a notch, but that's why I also wanted it green wood. Not only is it stretchy, it's fleshy. So I could safely put my knife in there without jeopardizing any of my digits getting cut off. I'm right-handed, so I want to control it with my right hand the best, so I'll hold this blade with my left. And just start knocking her in on this side. Nice and gentle. You don't want to get in too much of a hurry. The reason why you want to be nice and slow and gentle, you can hear that wood cracking. You can feel that wood starting to break. Now I know I want it down that deep, but sometimes the wood doesn't want to go that deep. And it's okay if it's only that much, you know, so each branch changes. If you were to use a willow, you can make that sucker hold a basketball in there, you know, because they're really stretchy. Now remember, I don't want to sit there and go so deep that I end up cutting through my wood, right? So now that I've gotten to that other wood, I'm going to take another stick. I'm going to place it in there before I take out my knife. Take out my knife, put it down so it's safe. You notice I'm not holding my knife. I'm trying to do this too, you know, because it's just another mistake that could happen. So I'm going to wiggle that down. See how tight of a fit that is, right? Cool. Now, this could actually probably just work right there because of how it's splitting, but I want a little bit more of an opening because I know that to fire, oxygen's important. And I know that I got some other stuff to do, and I don't want to sit around and mess with this thing every 5 minutes, right? So I'm going to go ahead and set myself up with another one and drive that into the ground so you can be an extra little bit safe. I'm going to find the fattest parts, which would probably be these two little branches, and I'll basically try to split those in half now. Get my fingers out of the way. Press that down a little bit. Now you see right there, it looks like I need to back off just a hair. Otherwise, it's going to be going to the handle of my blade. So you just pay attention to what you're doing, where your tools are going. Notice I'm not using anything that's going to hurt me. As far as like both of these items can hurt me, but not the way I'm using them. You can do this super, super, super unsafe. I wouldn't recommend it though. See, now that one's starting to look like it's gonna come off because it's got a knot right there where a branch came out. That's okay. Ain't nothing wrong with that. See, we lost a couple little pieces there. Look, I can use that piece for my new split. All right. Take out the knife. I got a little split right there, so I can sit there and use another stick like this. Or I could sit there and make a whole new other split, but hey, I'm liking that one. That allows me to have pretty good oxygen in there. Now see, if I was sitting there making a fishing spear, it wouldn't kind of work too much different than this thing. Maybe we can work on one of those next time. But I could sit there and make the grooves for a fishing spear. I'm not using this knife right now, so I'm gonna put it up. I like black knives, but trust me, when you're ADHD and you forget to put it up and you lose a good $100 knife, you go, oh man, I did it again. So, now I've got this and this. Made her nice and safe. Drive this into the ground so I can use both of my hands on you guys. Remember, when you're doing this, you're gonna just be laying on your lap. Nobody's sitting there trying to get good visuals of you. So I'm kind of doing this in an awkward way so that everybody can see. So I've got all that. What did we find there earlier? We found some moss, right? So we've gathered some moss. Uh-oh. Is my pine in there? Yeah, there it is. So then we gathered our pine sap. So I got a little ball of pine sap. Now I was just using this for an example. If I was gonna try to camp all night and have this deter mosquitoes, I would have gathered probably more of this and more of the moss, right? So, I take my moss and I try to get the majority of those dirts off. See, those little roots weren't even a part of the moss. So I'm getting majority of that dirt off. I put my pine sap ball and I wrap it in my moss. Your moss does not have to be completely dry, because if it's green, it'll never be completely dry. That's the point. We want it to smoke. So this awesome stuff, we're gonna set to the side for just a little second. Now, where I'm at, I don't want to set this just down anywhere, because when I go to put it back on, I'm not going to be able to find it like I did with the sticks earlier. So I'm learning from the mistake I made just earlier when I lost my sticks, right? So I'm going to set them on that way I know where they're going to go. And I got my monkey hair, right? So grab some fine little tenders of this monkey hair. We're going to make ourselves a little miniature bird's nest real quick. Just using my thumbs here and just kind of making the shape of a bowl. It's never got to be anything perfect. The reason why I'm making the bowl on this one is because I also want some fat wood in here. So, I'm going to get my fire pack out, as well as some water, because I guess I'm sweating. But I'll get my fire bag out, because I know I always keep some fat wood in there, right? Am I right, kids, or what? Keep you on your toes. So here's some fat wood. I want to get my knife back out. So I'm going to cut some of this fat wood, right? No. No. Like, you see that position I'm in? What if I were to lose my grip? I've been doing this my whole life, kids, and I do not trust myself enough to make that kind of mistake. I'm going to use the scissor technique, so I'm real fine and good like that, but it's still dangerous. This, my buddy Dave Canterbury calls that the triangle of death. I've heard it called like the circle of death and stuff too. But I really like that triangle, because when you're sitting, you really kind of see that triangle. You got femoral arteries and stuff like that in there. It's vital. Okay, so we want to get out of that. So if I were to go like this, well, what if I still slip? It's South Florida. Now some people be like, oh, you should have boots on, Captain Planet. Like, come down to the Everglades and live in your boots. Tell me how it treats you.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder how your athlete's foot infection and swamp foot infection and all that other stuff is going to be treating you. Because I get athlete's foot and stuff down here if I just sweating in boots all day. So, because I'm open-toed, right? Trust me, those boots ain't going to save your toes you missed with that axe or that hatchet. So, you do stuff like this, you can be barefoot. Because believe it or not, like there's a little group of folks called the Roman Empire. Those guys like conquered half the world wearing nothing but sandals. And they carried like swords and axes. So it must be like a thing where if you're taught in a safe way, not like praising the Roman Empire, by the way, I just kind of thought it was like a funny joke. But I want to get out of that zone, right? So I put this leg out of the way, because it was out of the way, right? I could get on my knees and safely do this too, but right here, this feels more comfortable to me. I'm out of that triangle of death. I'm going to use the little scissor technique where I'm sitting there and I'm using this thumb to engage too. Now, usually I have some tighter pieces, or longer pieces, excuse me, because I know that my freaking hands are the size of bear paws. And like holding the normal size twig of fat wood is just a little bit weird to me. You know, it's like, to your hands it might be a little different, but I'll also carry some longer fat woods. I just happen to forget it in the truck. So remember, guys, too, knives aren't chisels.
Yeah.
You know, so knives are not made to do this. They're not made to drag. Knives are made to slice, okay? So you slice it. See how that goes in a lot deeper and finer? So you can also sit there and use that wood and make it come to you. So right here, I'm out of the triangle of death. This is kind of an awkward stick because it's really long. But I could sit there and pull it to me. I'm never even using my knife. So if I wanted to sit there and make a feather stick is, let's say you didn't live in Florida and there's not a palmetto every 5 feet loaded with monkey hair. You'd make a little feather stick. So you'd sit there and you'd come in, you'd find the higher piece of wood. Again, this is a green piece of wood, guys. So we're not making a real feather stick. I'm just kind of showing you. Feather sticks mean when you sit there and slowly fade that up, and you'll get all these tiny little sprigs like this at the end of the piece of wood. That's for if you can't find any tinder to get your fire started. So you're actually using the wood that you're trying to set on fire as the tinder source itself. It's called a feather stick. But it's a lot easier if you move that along and you're sitting there and curving that blade around. You know, so remember, that'll also keep your blade dull evenly, sharp evenly. So if you're always sitting there using it right here, dragging it like it's a chisel, you're gonna fade your knife out quicker than you would. So it's another important little tool there. So I'm gonna use that scissor technique a little bit. And again, I'm putting the fat wood in here. My reason why is because I want this fire to burn hot enough that it can catch live moss on fire and smoke a lot. And I don't think that monkey hair alone is gonna do that for me. So I'm adding in the oils from this fat wood so it'll sit there and get real hot and burn like a candle. So I'm having to take my time doing this because I put myself in a little bit more dangerous situation than I like. I don't like cutting something that small, you know, if it's not needed. I can also take the back of the knife and do that with finer shavings. The back of this knife is a little bit rounded, which is like insanely dumb for advertising it as a survival knife and then not having a hard 90-degree edge, because that does a lot of tools for you too. But I have another knife for that too. So I've probably got enough fat wood that I need in here. You see how shiny that is. You guys want to smell that again so you get an idea? Did everybody get to smell it? Cool. Put that back in my fire starting bag. Put my knife up real quick. Get out my ferro rod. Now, time for action. I might even just try to drive this down a little bit. I think it's gonna go. Tell you how we can fix that. right? See, and I'm taking little whacks like this, guys, because I don't want it to go into the soil. So I'm getting the angle that I want it, and then I'll lift up and then go a clean one like that. Boom, gone. So I'm using that leverage for precision. But notice I'm not compromising the edge of my hatchet at all. I'm not hitting the dirt. Got that where I want it? See how it goes right off like that? So it's a little bit of a tool that you guys can use for an example. Sure, I'm taking a couple more whacks at it, but I'm never missing, am I? Cool. I'm gonna get my knife out for a finer edge. You see, I'm paying attention to my surroundings. I didn't swing that thing when he reached over, did I? I'm just putting this as a point because let's say I'm setting up camp. I'm not carrying that. If I was carrying that through a trail, I wouldn't want that to have a sharp point, right? I'd probably put some stuff on the top and round that off so I don't trip and fall and like, oh, look at my bug killer killed me, you know? Wouldn't be very good, would it? So now that I've got that point, I can sit there and dry that into the soil a little bit easier. So now it'll stay up there and I can use both hands and be a little safer and you guys can see better. So there I've got my fat wood into my little tiny bird's nest right there. So I'm going to place that inside of here. Now be careful when you're prying that back to get your fingers in there because you don't want to break the wood. You're not going to hurt your fingers, but you can break that wood. And that's another reason why I like green wood, like a live wood. I've got that in there. Now I'm kind of grabbing it on the edges to give it a little bit more surface area for me to light it on fire. Because I can take even monkey hair and put it in such a tight ball that it won't want to light because it's all about surface area. That feather stick, I'm increasing my surface area, so I'm increasing the odds of my fire. So I see that, and I've decided I'm going to add just a little bit more of the fat wood on top, okay? Because a lot of it ended up in the middle. So I'm putting some of this right there on the top. Notice how I'm sitting there slicing it. I'm not using my knife like a chisel. I like my knives to keep an edge on them, right? So I'm taking the high spot, not going against the flat part. Getting the high spot using the scissor technique with my thumbs. That way I'm being nice and safe. Having that extra thumb on there is simply just extra safety, guys. You can never be too safe out here. All right, perfect. Put my knife back up. I see too many people doing things and holding their knives. You know, and like I'm probably guilty of it too when nobody's looking, thinking it's gonna speed things up. But I nicked myself in the thumb a couple weeks ago doing exactly what I said not to do on the video I just got done making. You know, so like trust me, that there's reasons why this is important. Because I even reminded myself that even the experts make mistakes. You know, like I was trying to hurry, you know, doing something I'd done 1,000 times, but I've also known that was not smart to do. And I got hurt. It could have cut my whole thumb off.
I think that's the number one thing you said, hurrying.
Yep, hurrying.
Yeah.
Now I could sit there and pull out my Bic lighter because I like to keep one of those on me too, and that's super easy, right? But we'll do it old school style and use our ferro rod. I think I actually already pulled it out, didn't I? There it is. See what I mean about leaving stuff on the ground? Some of that's kind of hard to find even when you remember that you left it on the ground. So again, with these guys, you can use that side and scrape up a little bit of metal. That way you know you're going to get a nice shaving kicking off in there. And you can either push or you can pull. I like the pull method. Now remember, you can buy one of these and do this all day long. why isn't it working? Like, there's so much technique in everything that I'm doing, so never get frustrated, guys. All you got to do is ask, and I'll teach you. You notice there's an angle that I'm holding that on, because that's basically a flat piece of metal with two curves of 90 degrees. I'm using the angle, so I'm taking that flat piece of wood, and I'm using that part and scraping. So I'm holding that at an angle, like a 45-degree angle right there. So I want my fire right here. Now, in this situation, is it easier for me to push or pull? Because this particular situation, to pull it, I'd be like kind of doing that, and then I could sit there and fling off my fat wood. So in this particular situation, I think that it's going to serve me better simply by doing the push method. That way I can use this to aim and then just push in. Let that get going a little bit. It could take a couple lights, because remember, guys, it's packed in there pretty tight. So I may have to reposition some of it and get a little bit more surface area and a little bit more oxygen in there. And that's okay. Now you see that fat wood burning real hard, yeah? It's like a candle. Now I take my moss. I want that to burn in a little bit. I don't want to use my moss and put that out. That's a pretty easy mistake, but also a pretty fixable mistake. You just get back up and relight it. So I want to have a little bit of a flame there. And as it catches a little bit more down up in here, see, now I can kind of tell that this little situation might require a little bit more fat wood on it. And that's okay. I'm going to put a little bit more fat wood right there on that side. That way I've got a nice long-lasting flame. See how it went out on me a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and load it up a little bit more before I try to relight it. I was trying to just relight it with my breath, but there's not quite enough monkey hair in there as far as the oxygen goes too to do that. But also remember, I've got some more monkey hair if I need it. I didn't use it all. I can sit there and put some of it up on top like this real loose. See if that might help me a little bit. Putting some different scenarios out there for you guys. Light that up. This one's being a little tricky on me. See, and what that's telling me, guys, is I've got too much tightness. And then I need to try to get this flame up underneath. So I'm stuffing a little bit back there. And I'm going to aim this really precisely up under here. Oh, dropped that, didn't I? This is also why you carry a Bic lighter if you need it. Now another trick that I would also do, carry some Vaseline with me. So I can actually sit there and swipe some of this monkey hair with that Vaseline and get me a nice oily burn kind of going on as well. So I might use that too to help me. Because remember, survival is about kind of what you're packing too. Nobody's ever going to steal your pants. You're not going to be naked and afraid. Hopefully. And that oil's burning down. Now it's catching that fat wood from the Vaseline. I'm gonna let that burn a little bit more though. I might even add a little bit, have it on fire here and hold it down here to help some of that smoldering process there. Now I'm gonna watch on the ground and put that out, right? You don't want to start a different fire by Now if I couldn't get this to work, what I would do is just take my whole ball out of there that I made and cut it in half. As far as I'd remove half of that monkey hair, because our problem was that we didn't have enough oxygen. And that's why I like those spaces. See how you can see through that? That allows oxygen to come up. But you see just that little trick of having some Vaseline, that does pretty good, doesn't it? Especially if you have like nothing but a cotton ball. Well, that cotton ball is going to stay lit for 3 seconds, but a cotton ball swiped in Vaseline is going to stay lit for several minutes, right? So we go back to putting our moss back on. Now this white smoke that'll start happening, that's going to be our insect repellent. Oh, darn. And remember, even if your Bic lighter runs out of fluid, if there's an open flame, you know, you can still use that a lot of times, and it'll have enough fluid, even just in the air in it, to extend that fire over. You're not going to be able to do that for an entire year, though, trust me. But that's a nice little trick on like why it's also important to just have a lighter with you. Sometimes people want to be like ultimate survival, like I can survive with nothing but a hatchet. Like in 2021, only kind of a foolish person would only use nothing but a hatchet and a knife. Like some people would call me like, oh, and he says he's a bushcraft guy, like, and he's got, you know, fire starting logs in his kit. Like, I don't care what the word bushcraft even means. Back in my day, it was called just being an Indian. But, you know, it's about being smart. I'm going to have a fire. I don't have anything to prove to anyone, but I'm going to have a fire. You know, and sometimes people don't stop to think, why is fire so important in Florida for survival, for cleaning your water? I don't know if you guys noticed, but we don't really need a fire to stay warm, but we do need a fire. You guys can see this sap is just bubbling in there like crazy. You guys see that? See it just bubbling in there? And that's a great insect deterrent right there. So this sucker will sit there and burn and burn and burn. I'd have another little pile of mosses that I could keep adding to that. And I would just basically have another sap ball covered in my moss, and then I'd come in and place him on top. Maybe if it was real tall, like I'd just simply take my knife and kind of pat it down a little bit, make a little bowl. But it works great. No different than your tiki torch at home, but I did everything just using nature right here.
Kind of smells like it too.
Yeah, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does. I think it smells great.
Yeah, it does.
But the insects hate it. The mosquitoes hate it. And that's why